Playwright Finn Kennedy is a very busy man, with projects on the go for the Brighton Festival and Birmingham Rep Theatre. But his rise to become one of the country's most popular young writers hasn't been easy. This playwright looks set to never disappear completely and can often be found at the Southwark Playhouse. So Finn, your play, How to Disappear Completely and Never Be Found, is among the most popular plays licensed for amateur performance by Nick Hearn Books, but it took some time to reach the stage of professional performance. Tell us more about that.
I originally developed it at Soho Theatre when I was writer in residence during 2003, and I became really interested in missing persons, which was through the National Missing Persons Helpline, who've got this amazing website which is just galleries of snaps of ordinary people who it was just the last time they were seen, and a couple of lines beneath just saying a sort of basic physical description, but then also saying was last seen out drinking with friends, left early, made an excuse, and was last seen driving north. And I was kind of instantly captivated by that. Why did they do it? But also, how did they do it? And I did a bit more research, and it turned out that there's a little cottage industry of slightly kind of underground publishers selling you guidebooks about how to pull this off, how to change your identity, how to go through getting a new driving license, new credit rating, even up to a passport. And it is not as difficult as you might think. So I started having to kind of digest this quite abstract research into a kind of a piece of drama, character-led storyline. On one level, it's kind of a play about this guy who does this, tries to rebrand himself, is the kind of metaphor, but it quite quickly becomes a philosophical inquiry into the nature of identity anyway, and what is it that makes you who you are in the modern world? Is it a set of documents? Is it as easy as just getting a new name and address? Or is it something more kind of physical and biological than that? Is it about your memories or the way your brain works or your personality or the scars on your body or your relationships with people? The play, I think, ran into the difficulties that you're referring to, partly because it makes it breaks a few rules, it takes a few stylistic risks. Shortly after the play begins, you realise that Charlie is dead and alive at the same time. The reality kind of splits, and that was a deliberate decision in order to have this kind of fractured narrative, in order to try and explore this quite complicated philosophical territory, which I just couldn't do in a naturalistic way. But it did mean that it took a long time to find its home in terms of the professional theatre industry. The play itself went through a lot of drafts, so I think Soho Theatre weren't entirely sure what I was developing. Eventually decided not to produce it, at which point I then took it to all the other new writing companies in London who were in a position to produce it, and they either didn't get back to me or rejected it. And so I was having a really miserable time when I got a call from the Arts Council saying that How to Disappear had won that year's John Whiting Award, which was one of two big playwriting awards they used to run, and came with some cash as a prize. But then I found myself in this strange position in that I had this award-winning play which had already been rejected by everywhere, and no one was going to turn around and go, oh, okay, it was quite good really, we'll put it on now. I hadn't targeted the non-London theatres with it at that time, and so I started sending out a bit further afield, and it ended up with Sam West and Ellie Jones, who were at Sheffield Crucible at that time, and they put on the world premiere in 2007, which got some rave reviews and sold out and was a fantastic production, and Nick Hearn of course published it. A funny thing happened with the publication of the book, which was that I almost developed a relationship with readers, a bit like a novelist, because lots of people were ordering it and reading it, and they still do. And that was a funny position to be in. It was almost like I bypassed the theatre industry altogether because the play had got so much publicity, but it was still, even though we had a sold-out run in Sheffield's studio, a lot more people wanted to see it than were able to, and so the script started selling really well. And I kind of, people would write to me about it, and it seemed to have struck a chord with a lot of people, and I still get emails about it all the time. It was great. I mean, yeah, of course, it's always great when you get your work on, and doubly so when you think that at one point that you might never get this play on, you know. And I was prepared to do it myself above a pub somewhere and put in, you know, do the fundraising and all that. So it was brilliant that Sheffield Crucible came along when they did. But I mean, subsequent to that, it's been amazing because it's had this extraordinary afterlife, which I really didn't predict or expect at all. And then, of course, Nick Hearn Books telling me it's in their top 10 most performed amateur plays, which again is an extraordinary thing because it did strike me before this happened that it was such a complicated, demanding technical kind of show that it would be a challenge for professional companies, let alone amateurs. But it's on all the time. It's rarely not on. So I'm clearly doing something right. I wish I knew what that formula was. I'd do it again.
So what would you say are the special requirements for staging it?
I don't like to trot out a list of do's and don'ts because I don't think that's very helpful for companies, particularly coming from the writer. They might think that that's gospel or that there is a single right way of doing it, and I don't believe that to be true of any play. All the clues you need are in the text, but the endless reinterpretation of it is fine by me. The main thing, having said that I would say, is that I think you have to like Charlie because he carries the whole play. You don't go with the whole play. You think, well, you brought it on yourself, you idiot, if you don't like him, And I've seen a lot of different professional actors play Charlie, and they've all done a brilliant job in their own way. But it's very easy to play up this sort of Essex lad quality to him, and he is an Essex lad, and that can't be ignored. But you've got to get some vulnerability in there, because otherwise he just comes across as this rather unsympathetic kind of swaggering figure, and you kind of think, well, good, you fool. If you don't like him, you have to like him to go with him on that journey. So that's the only real note that I'd give. I mean, the play moves very fluidly through time and space, so it suit quite a stylised set, quite a stylised staging and direction, for example. I love plays that do that don't kind of respect that you have to have end of scene 1, start of scene 2, change the furniture around. I just like a character to finish one scene and turn around and start talking to someone else, and that scene starts. So play with that, enjoy that. That would be my main advice to any company.
And of course, these are challenging times for people involved in amateur theatre and young writers like yourself. What do you think the future holds?
I think one of the silver linings of there being less money around is that professional theatre makers, particularly writers, will have to reconnect with communities. They will have to get work in schools. They'll have to approach amateur groups. They will have to come up with their own project ideas, have community elements to whatever professional commissions they are doing. And I actually think that's a great thing. I think that too often the professional theatre is a bit cut off from communities, and that actually they're where the stories are. It actually sets you up as an investigator of the world around you, which I think is one of the most important roles in a society that a playwright can fulfil. I certainly feel the weight of responsibility every time I write a play, particularly in the subsidised sector, of this is a taxpayer-funded thing. What am I giving the taxpayer back? As an audience member, when I come out of the theatre, I want to come out of there thinking, oh my God, I had no idea that went on. Or I had never thought of it that way before. To see the world afresh, And that's what I think one of the most valuable roles that playwrights can fulfil, is to go out and investigate the world and bring something amazing back and go, look what I found. Necessity is the mother of invention, as they say, and I think as long as we approach an age of austerity with the kind of creativity that we use in our art form, then we'll come out of it okay.
Finn, thanks so much for joining us here on Stage Talk, and good luck with your future projects.
Thank you very much.